Last week's interview with Transport Minister Gerry Brownlee left a few provincial mayors rather hot under the collar. The minister was responding to a report about the cost of the 7 so-called roads of national significance and how they were putting pressure on other areas of the roading budget, including the country's provincial roads. Some of the mayors from the regions would like to respond to Mr Brownlee's comments. So, welcome to Southland Mayor Franna Cardno, who was in our report. Also, Brian Cadogan, Mayor of Clutha, and Angus Mackay, Mayor of Ashburton. Welcome to you all.
Good morning, all.
I'd like to start first this morning. Last week we suggested to Gerry Brownlee that the roads of national significance had essentially blown the roading budget, and because of that local councils were missing out. In particular, we cited Southland. It's a region with hundreds of milk tankers pummelling its roads every day, and some of those roads are in a bit of a mess. Mr Brownlee insisted, though, that Southland wasn't missing out on funding.
Well, I was staggered by the Southland story, quite honestly. I mean, they're getting a 4.5% increase in their overall allocation.
It's not as enough as what they want, though.
Well, hang on, I'm coming to that. Alex, just give me a minute. So they're getting a 4.5% increase over the previous period. When it comes to just the road maintenance part, it's a 6.2% increase. And in the previous period, they didn't use all the money that they had and returned some to NZTA. So I'm really perplexed by that particular piece.
Franna Cardno, if I can start with you. Mr Brownlee says you're getting an increase in funding.
Yes, no, that sounds good, doesn't it? Mr Brownlee said, I think that for Southland District it was about 4.5% increase. And NZTA, New Zealand Transport Service, are giving us 2.4% less. And our FAR, which is a financial assistant rate, has dropped. So in reality, our ratepayers are paying $972,000 over 3 years more, and they're paying that money for less work because the NZTA have flatlined our money, and the inflation, if you looked at bitumen alone, that is 5% plus other costs. So we're paying more. Our ratepayers, our rural ratepayers, are paying more for less. We just can't do it, and we can't do that vital maintenance on our roads.
I'm just going to stay with you for a moment because I'm going to quote from a letter that you wrote to Mr Brownlee this week as well. He said on the programme that you'd given money back that you'd set aside for roading. He said you returned that to the government. You wrote to him and said the NZTA insisted that money be returned, and our understanding of the situation was that the money was required for major expenditure blowouts in the North Island. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about the roads of national significance there?
Well, we're not exactly saying that, but we were told that it was urgently needed in other areas because of blowouts. So we couldn't do that work, that 1.3 million. We wanted to carry it over to the next year. We couldn't do it because of weather conditions. And now what's happening is that is going to come off our next year's budget before we even start. So we thought that was totally unfair remark. We would have done that work, but we just couldn't do it in the contracting season because of the weather, and we could not carry it over because of the fact that it was needed in other areas where there had been blowouts.
OK, if I can bring you in, Angus Mackay, the Mayor of Ashburton. Mr Brownlee says the government will, of course, provide funding for roading, but that you could potentially fund it yourself as well, a little locally through your rates. Can you?
Oh, good morning, Rachel. Yes, we could if we wanted to, but we faced the problem where the local government minister said at the beginning of the year that he would not accept any council raising rates greater than 3.9%. So then the previous Minister of Transport has allowed heavier trucks on the road, so we have more weights on the road, and then they start flatlining our funding. Yes, we are getting increases, but the increases are actually taken up with the inflation component of roading. We've tried different road mixes in our efficiency drive, We've re-looked at the contract with our contractor on roads. Our grader drivers and the people that actually work on the roads are doing a terrific job with the amount of time that they're allowed to spend fixing that pothole or grading that road. So it's just a decreasing of funding coming from our share. Remember, Rachel, that 50% of the road user tax and petrol tax throughout New Zealand is collected on what is called the rural roads, and yet the funding coming back is only 33%. So if we got a bigger share of that, we would be able to manage and meet the deadline put by the government of only a 3.9% rate rise. We actually went above the 3.9 to keep our roads as well as we can, but the forecast shows that we're going to be losing out and our roads will deteriorate from the forecast put out by NZTA in the next 3 years.
OK, Brian Cadogan, I'll bring you in here, Mayor of Clutha. The government tells us time and again it is dairy that is driving our economy, and of course that puts hundreds of milk tankers on our roads, particularly in the south where there's been so much dairy conversion. Is the government providing you, do you think, with the infrastructure that you need to keep this industry on the roads?
Our roading network's certainly under pressure. I think any reasonable New Zealander would see that as a nation we're under pressure. But our trump card that we're going to get out of this hole is going to be export. And an export-led recovery will come from the Southland and the Clutha district, cows and sheep. We've got to keep that network functioning. And at the moment, we, like Southland, have had a decline in our funding.
OK, well, tell me a little bit about what I understand is a crucial part of your infrastructure down there, the Clydevale Bridge. I think that crosses the Clutha River about 20 k's, I think, upstream from Clutha. What role does that road play for heavy haulage and getting some of that milk and that product in and around the country?
It plays a huge part to our roading network. Just in the next few weeks, the new dairy factory in Clydevale is about to open. They can see the bridge from their factory, and yet because of the weight restrictions that we're having to place on that bridge, they can't get their full tankers across it. Now that's got a huge effect on our whole economy because those trucks have to detour through Clinton, down to Clutha, back up to Clydevale. Where's the efficiency in that?
How much do you need and how much can your council put into it to strengthen that bridge?
Our council's ready and waiting with our 31% share. We've got our money there and waiting, and we would really like to think that for such a significant part of our network that the government would reconsider.
OK, Frana Cardno, I'll bring you in here, Mayor of Southland. Hundreds of Fonterra's milk trucks are going up and down the roads in your province. Do you think that Fonterra should be potentially tipping any money into improving the roads?
Look, our farmers that and Fonterra already pay an awful lot of rates and they pay their road charges as well. When you think about what that farmer at the end of the road produces for our economy. But if you look at the facts of this, our residents per person in Southland are paying $400, and they, in Southland, we produce 11% of our exports. And I'm not picking on Auckland, but they pay $164 per resident and they produce 9%. We have got to get real where the roads of national economic significance are, and they are in rural New Zealand. We're going to spend $10 billion on those roads of national significance, and we're just asking for that to be delayed so that we can get on with the maintenance and the safety that we need to do for our roads, and otherwise we're going to have a disaster in rural New Zealand in the future when we try to catch up on what we're not doing now.
All right, Angus Mackay, Mayor of Ashburton. The government has suggested that perhaps you could be more efficient, if you like, when it comes to maintaining your roads. Are you doing a good job, do you think?
Yes, we have. As I said earlier, we have relooked the contract and come in at the same as the previous year. We're working with other councils to bring in shared services. We now have a computerised program up and running for testing our road strength, but it doesn't that does not solve the problem that we are asked by the government to put bigger trucks, heavier trucks on the road, including grain trucks, trucks that cart lamb to the freezing works in our area. We're just falling behind with the measures that they're putting in, a combination, as I said before, the rates that they would like us to charge, we are becoming more efficient in the way we are doing it. Even our grader drivers are trying new mechanisms. We've actually tried new mixes, for example, at corners of roads made up of clay and lime, to look at it to see if that is a more efficient way of doing it than tar seal. So we're trying to use the local natural product, but we're just still falling behind.
OK, I'm just quickly going to ask all three of you this. I'll stay with you for a moment, Angus Mackay. If you can say one thing to Gerry Brownlee about what you need right now, what's that?
Just our share of that petrol tax and road user tax, to bring that up to our share of that. That's all we ask, just our share, no more. Brian Cadogan, Mayor of Clutha, what do you want out of the government right now?
What I want is to see Christchurch recover, to see New Zealand go forward, but to keep that trump card of the export-led recovery up our sleeve. We've got to keep that to get out of this hole.
All right, and Fran Accardo, Mayor of Southland, what would you like? What's on your wish list?
Well, my first wish list is that Mr Brownlee perhaps comes into rural New Zealand, comes down to the Southlands and Cluthas and Ashburton and understands our issues, and that we get fair funding so we can go on producing those exports so New Zealand can survive in the future.
All right, thank you to Southland Mayor Fran Accardo. Very much appreciate your time. Brian Cadogan, Mayor of Clutha, and Angus Mackay, Mayor of Ashburton. Thank you all for your time this morning.
Thank you.